Okay. 15 plus 10, ladies and gentlemen. Let's go. Like I said, guys, I would like to vary our opening choices a little bit as we hit 1600. I played the Queen's Gambit Declined exclusively throughout the speedrun so far, but I want to introduce you to a couple of interesting sidelines that I recommend to players, and one of them is the Baltic, which I played in my 5-minute speedrun, the original speedrun. I want to play it again here, and let's see how it fares in a 15-minute game. The Baltic is this move, Bishop F5. Those of you new to my stream, you're probably not familiar with this move, but I've had previous streams where I explained this in depth. I taught half of this move, and I'll talk about all things opening after the game. Queen b3 is not one of the most common moves, but it is one of the most challenging. Okay, now Queen b3 exploits the drawback of Bishop f5. It gets the queen out, it attacks b7. And you basically need to know what to do here, right? It's very, very hard for black to come up with a move if you are seeing this position for the first time, because, pawn on b7 hangs, pawn on d5 is hanging. What we basically need to do here is just keep developing our pieces. We need to close our eyes, pretend that nothing is being attacked, and just develop our pieces. Now, which piece should we develop? No, knight c6, he plays c takes... You know what the problem is with knight c6? He plays c takes d5. And if we take on d4, there's a check on a4, which wins the knight. Well, it's not b6, because then c takes d5. Is it e6 takes and knight d7? No. It might be d takes c4, queen takes b7, knight d7. No, it's definitely not knight d7 here. I think it's either d takes c4, or... one way or another, we sacrifice the pawn on b7. This is the pawn we want to sacrifice so that we get at least initiative against white's queen. I think it's d takes c4. By the way, queen b5 check does not win the bishop because we can drop it back, or we can cover with the queen. I thought it was knight c6, but it's not. Okay, queen b7. Obviously, our rook is attacked, so we have to go knight d7. Essentially, in the Baltic... in many of these variations, you bank on rapid development. Literally, you throw everything, you throw caution to the wind, and the only thing that you care about is quick development and opening up the center early. So in the name of developing rapidly, what should we do? Should we try to cling to this pawn with bishop e6? Ugh, that looks ugly. No, we shouldn't go e5 yet. Because after d takes c5, we cannot recapture. And we just go knight gf6. Only after queen takes c4 can we consider opening up the center with e5. In fact, I think it's time for us to open up the center. Why? How do I know that? Well, because we've got 3 pieces developed and white has 0. Right? So if we are to exploit our lead in development, I propose that we try to do that now, right? Rather than procrastinating and letting white consolidate. Should be logical to everybody. We play e5. Now, the Baltic is a dubious opening objectively, but from a practical perspective, it's a very interesting opening at this approximate level, 1600. Okay, DE. Well, obviously, knight takes e5. And one very important detail, queen b5 check. Yes. It looks like it wins a piece, but it doesn't. And yet, black needs to be very precise. Very precise. What is black's move? Trick question. Not pawn c6 because you lose the e5 knight. You have to cover with the knight, but which one? Well, if you cover with the e knight, you lose the bishop. That's a very important thing to notice. Knight fd7. No, that's San Pellegrino. This is a little bit awkward, but so is white's queen. White's queen can now be targeted by the rook. The bishop can come out to b4. This could get very dangerous for white. Very dangerous. And I'm sure that white is better, objectively speaking, but practically, this is a lot of fun, let's put it that way. Yeah, white's queen is just sort of stumbling around. It's hung over. Bishop f4. Okay, so our opponent develops a piece. Now, by the way, the way my brain works, like the moment bishop f4 is played, the first thing that I kind of noticed or paid attention to was the pawn on b2 now no longer being defended by the bishop. All right? That's the first thing I kind of saw in a moment. Now we have to figure out whether that can be exploited. And obviously it can be. Rook b8 comes to mind. Bishop d6 also comes to mind. Good move. Bishop d6 is a great move, developing another piece. But if we are to play more ambitiously, this seems like a great opportunity to play rook b8. But I don't see why bishop d6 first is necessary, guys. Because rook b8 attacks the queen. It's not like white can capture the knight, right? So I don't see the downside to deploying our rook first. And then we can decide, based on where the queen goes, whether we need to play bishop d6. Does that make sense? Just logical. Now, white is already in trouble, I think, because abandoning this pawn was not a good idea. Does the move order matter here? Well, yes, it does, I think. I think bishop d6 is decent, but it gives white an opportunity. Thank you for the opportunity. It gives white an opportunity to move the queen away preemptively. And now we're winning. And now we're winning. How do we win? Very good, Anita. Bishop on f4 is an undefended piece. Well, Egolient, not really. A lot of you, I'm sure, are thinking about this check. And that's definitely tempting. And it's not bad, but there is a better move. We can go rook b4. Goodbye, bishop. And it only took us 10 moves. Boom, boom. Knight c5 is illegal. The knight is pinned. And once we take the bishop, we still have our initiative. But now we have an extra piece. Okay, queen takes a7. All right. Now, a great lesson in not making any automatic moves. A lot of people would take the bishop here, but if you want to be accurate, what do you start with? What do you start with? Absolutely. Bishop c5, you get the bishop out first, and then you take on f4, and this is getting more and more devastating by the move. And obviously, when I tell you that there is a different move, you find it instantly. The challenge is that during a game, there's nobody to tap you on the shoulder and say that, you know, there's a move like this. But it's a mentality thing, right? It's all about setting yourself up with the mentality that you don't play automatically on any move. You always look for the best that you can do. Yeah, just look at the development. I mean, it's crazy. After we take the bishop, white will have 0 pieces developed. I mean, this might be resigns. Queen a6, rook f4. Now we take, obviously. Although maybe even there we had a better move. There was stuff we could have done there. e3. Okay. The hilarious thing is we could probably castle and we'd still be winning. Yeah, the lead in development, I don't think I've ever seen a lead in development like this. Now, if I was playing a classical game, I would spend some time calculating rook takes f2. Sacking the rook and hunting the king once it lands on f2. But for the sake of the speedrun, I don't want to bog ourselves down with this kind of speculative play. Thank you, Righteous Judas. So instead, I propose that we make a very simple move, and we move the rook away to b4. Okay? Bishop b4 check I don't like, because knight c3. Oh, wait a minute. Maybe there's a follow-up there. Let me think. Bishop b4 check, knight c3. Aha. There is a follow-up there. What is it? Bishop b4 check, knight c3. Looks like we're helping white develop, but in reality, we have a crushing move there. Now think about which squares are now accessible to your pieces after bishop b4 check. The bishop has moved itself from c5. That's a hint. We can go knight c5. Okay, so bishop b4 check, knight c3, knight c5. What does that accomplish? Well, it attacks the queen. What happens if the queen moves there? Well, the queen doesn't even have anywhere to move. But where are these knights going? What is the purpose of bringing your other knight to c5? d3. And once the knight gets to d3, the game is over. Check. Knight c3, knight c5, and probably we're going to end up winning a queen for something. And now knight c5. Get in there. Knight is coming to d3. Well, then play the Baltic if you want to have positions like these. Yeah, he played queen b3 very confidently, but things went downhill from there. Okay, it's over. Okay, queen b5 check. One final accurate move is required. What is the best way to cover the check? Ideally, we want to do it with tempo, obviously. Yeah, obviously c6. c6, and everything is protecting each other. That's it. In my recommendation, it's good to have one main opening and then sort of one gambit-y, sort of Baltic-y kind of line, which you don't play quite as frequently, but exists just so you can practice your tactics and, you know, so you can pull it out at certain moments just to mix it up. Baltic, I've already played the Chigorin. Albin is another one such opening. Okay, e takes f4. Now, even here, we can play a little bit more accurately than c takes b5. Well, actually, no, we can't. Let's just take the queen. Let's just take the queen. I thought for a moment that white could take with the bishop, but then we can block with our knight. The very same knight that's being attacked can block that check, and we keep that knight on top of everything else. Now let's finish the game off. Let's not let white back in the game. And when I say that, I think a lot of you right now are probably thinking, let's go knight d3 check. Let's go bishop d3. Let's go queen d4. But I'm going to make a move which looks like it probably lets white off the hook. I propose that we simply castle, right? Because after we castle, and I love to see that a lot of you are saying this, it just removes a headache, right? Bishop takes b5 check. By castling, you're completely freeing yourself for the decisive attack. Okay, now where should the queen go? Where should the queen go? Think about putting pressure on this knight. Yeah, queen a5. This is all very easy. No need to spend long on these moves. Okay, what now? We have a totally devastating move right now. Like, at this very moment, there is a crushing move. Not knight d3 check. Not bishop d3. Nobody has said it so far. You guys are fixating too much on the center and not enough on all sides of the board. Very good. Queen takes a2. Queen takes a2, and then queen takes b2. It's because of this pin. The moment the queen went to a5, and I've said this before, it's important to understand everything that a piece is doing, not just pay attention to one main thread and then forget about it, right? So as soon as you played queen a5, you could have said, okay, well, I'm threatening to take on c3, but if you look more carefully, you're also threatening to take on a2 and then take on b2, and the rest is... Okay, knight e2. Maybe white is actually going to be able to castle, which is kind of funny. Okay, we have a gazillion ways to win here. Essentially, the easiest approach is to win another minor piece. The easiest approach is to capture another minor piece. And the most clinical way of doing that, something which perhaps you guys aren't noticing, the queen is x-raying the bishop. So the simplest move is bishop takes knight check. Either we win the rook, or we take the bishop. There is again, don't bog yourself. Yeah, finally resigns. And the game ended up pretty one-sided. All right, so now we can use opening explorer. Oh, the move here is actually e5. This is the move I had forgotten. It's like an Albin on steroids. Yeah, this is the move. Now I remember. Queen b7, knight d7, and this leads to a very chaotic position where white pays the price for not developing anything but the queen. I remember analyzing this and thinking that in this line, black is fine even objectively. So the move here is e5, not dc4. dc4 is wrong. But the rationale behind playing the Baltic is pretty straightforward. It's like you want to play a Queen's Gambit decline, but you don't want to keep the bishop behind the pawn chain. So from a positional perspective, it's a very sound opening. But there are concrete issues with the Baltic, primarily the fact that white can play c takes d5. And the point here is not to recapture with the queen. This just looks like a terrible Scandi. But the point is to take white's knight before it gets a chance to develop, and then take on d5 with the queen, and then quickly get your queen side out. Knight c6, castles queen side, and then e5. So I'm not going to talk about it here in this video because I've had other videos where I talk about it, and I might make a separate dedicated opening video on the Baltic. So I don't want to bore people to death here. But all I want to say is that it's something you can consider as an alternative to Chigorin or Queen's Gambit. Okay, so queen b3, dc, queen b7, knight d7. And my guess, I think queen c6 is already a mistake. I think white starts going wrong here. I think the crucial move for white is just to go knight c3, and white is much better because e4 is coming with tempo, and then bishop takes c4. White tried to do everything with his queen, and that's just not a good strategy when you have nothing developed. Maybe e4 is okay here, but I think we have rook b8 in this position. And the queen is unable to keep the pawn on e4 protected. It loses contact. So the best move here is, I'm 99% sure, knight c3. Yeah, the Slav, sometimes it does. Okay. So queen b7, knight d7, queen c6. We get our knight out. Once again, knight c3. It's not too late for white to revert to the correct strategy. Queen takes c4 is, I think, a serious mistake, at least from a practical perspective after e5. And at every move, white more and more urgently had to develop a piece. So here, for example, white had to go knight f3. But our opponent just kept moving his queen. And when he decided to develop a piece, it was the wrong piece. It left the b2 pawn undefended. What should white have done here? Which piece should he have developed? Well, if f4, we have rook b8 anyway. Although already it's getting quite iffy. Yeah, probably knight c3 or knight f3. Knight c3. And if we go rook b8, perhaps the queen can park itself back on its initial square. Although this is looking very shady after bishop b4. This is looking mighty, mighty sketchy for white. So already it's very, very iffy. But after bishop f4, rook b8, I think black is simply winning. Because white is so overwhelmed here. And this just shows you how important development is. It's just impossible to play a game of chess without developing your pieces. Okay, maybe queen a6 was marginally more resilient, but this is game over. I mean, bishop is coming to b4 with totally devastating effect. So a good lesson in the fact that nobody is immune from this, right? You can be 2800, and if you don't have anything developed, you're going to lose in 5 moves. Does that make sense? Any questions? We don't have to analyze the rest of the game after queen a4, rook b4. I think everything else was very straightforward. Once we win the bishop and get the rest of our pieces out. When he went e3, could you have taken on b1? When did he go e3? Oh, here. Could I have taken here? Oh, so you want to give a bishop b4 check so the knight can't block? I'm sure the answer is yes. Yeah, this looks great as well. Maybe rook takes b1, but then maybe white can go like this, and the king is still okay here. Yeah, maybe white should go like this, and of course black is winning, but white is still kicking. So I think I like the way that we played. I think we found the best, the most accurate continuation, because the knight is getting into d3, which is totally crushing. And that's that. To what level would the Baltic walk? No, the Baltic has been played at the GM level. There's a book actually by a Russian grandmaster on the Baltic. It's not bad. White is better in several different ways, but that doesn't mean an opening is discredited, right? I mean, white is not winning in the Baltic, and even some GMs have struggled against me to find the best lines. People just don't tend to study it. I think it's by Bezgadov. You can look up this guy's last name on Google and then find his book. I'm pretty sure it's by Bezgadov, which means without years in Russian. No, it is the Liberated Bishop Defense. The Liberated Bishop Defense. That's what he calls it. It's a pretty old book. There's a lot of holes in it, but I mean, if you're an opening book collector, you can get it.